We are beginning the meeting. We will be conducting tonight's meeting in person as well as in virtual setting using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda instructions. Chair Gilbert will begin the meeting momentarily.
Like to call to order the City of Lincoln Planning Commission regular meeting of April 19, 2023. Do we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Uckland,
Here.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner McKinney,
Here.
Commissioner Reedy,
Here.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Here.
and Chairman Gilbert.
Here. We have a quorum. Item number 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner McKinney will be leading us in the pledge this evening. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next item is agenda modifications. Do we have any agenda modifications this evening? I see nothing from the staff, so we'll move on to item number 5. Item number 5 is citizens addressing the commission. At this time, we'd like to invite any citizen who would like to address the Planning Commission on any item that is not on the agenda. There will be an opportunity as we consider each agenda item for people to speak to that agenda item at that time. So, Madam Secretary, do we have anybody that signed a card or is online?
There were no cards submitted and there are no hands raised on the Zoom.
Thank you very much. Furthermore, if you want to speak on an agenda item and you're here, there are cards at the back of the room where you came in, and we'd appreciate if you would fill one out so that we can organize any speakers that we have for any particular agenda item. Item number 6, disclosure of ex parte communication. I'll start at this end with the Johnson Commissioners.
I have none.
None. I have none.
None.
And I have none. Thank you very much. Item 7 is the consent calendar. All matters on the, excuse me.
Chair, I just want to remind you that we do have one of your commissioners that's attending online via Zoom through specially noticed requirements under the Brown Act. So just need to make sure that she's given the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. It's good to have one sharp woman in the room. Well, we have at least one, I said.
I have none.
There we go. Thank you very much. We now will go on to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine business and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the request to remove a specific item for separate action is received. Any item removed will be considered after the remainder of the consent agenda. Do any of my colleagues wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remove item 7B.
7B.
with that removed, I would move adoption of the consent calendar.
I need to poll the rest of the council, the rest of the commission, and if there's anybody online.
I wanted to remove the meeting minutes.
Okay. Anything online?
There is none.
Okay, so we have those two. We will remove. Chair will entertain a motion on the remainder of the consent calendar.
I so move.
Thank you. Second, please.
That is the entirety of the
That is the
consent
whole-
calendar.
Yeah, there's nothing else.
There's nothing else besides items A and
So
B.
we've got to vote on them separately.
That's a good idea. So would you withdraw your motion?
I will.
Thanks. So the first one we'll take is 7B. And you requested that be pulled.
Yeah, there are some concerns I had, and most of them been addressed with conversations with staff. But the one item that really remains in my mind anyway, is the lack of access to the very attractive green space that almost surrounds the property. And I have a couple of slides that I would ask Jeannie if you would put up. These are the pictures of the area. This is a greenbelt area. I've lived in the community for over 20 years. And frankly, I'd never seen this, and it is pretty spectacular. If you would go on to the next slide. There's a picture further to the south. That's the casino in the background. And the picture doesn't really do it justice. There's some spectacular spring wildflower blooms here that didn't get caught. Next picture, please. All right, this is the only access, if you can call it that, to the green space area. This is a sidewalk and a storm drain flow through that you see there. There's a slab that kind of goes down to the green space and then ends there. There is no walkway around that area. The backyards of these homes just have a fence, and the public is just denied access to this beautiful, beautiful area. I think it's a crime, and I'd hate to approve this specific development plan without some changes made to allow that to happen. Was that it on the slides? That's the slab where it ends. I mean, you could launch a small kayak or canoe there, I suppose, but that's the extent of the access. And I'd like to ask staff if there is some way that we can amend, modify, or otherwise make some adjustment to the specific plan to allow a construction of a trail at the on the west side of the development that's before us tonight.
If I may, Mel Pavlinas. Hi.
Hang on.
I know we discussed this yesterday
Right.
between you and Christian and I. The extent of the application before you is just the review of the designs for conformance with the GDP regarding the theme, the buildings, the homes being proposed to be built by Century Communities. So while I see what you're getting at with regards to those slides, that's irrelevant, if I may say so, because the entitlement before you is a design review of the homes. That said, regarding the subdivision, it's already set. It's for 184 residential lots. That's not before you today. It's just the design review. So while I get what you're getting at with regards to those having access, that's not germane to the design review before you. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not sure if and I think we did review our open space bike trail plan. There aren't anything planned in terms of open space access trails to that open space lots. The GDP is also silent of any trail locations to the open space. I'm not sure if Lindy's online, maybe she can comment on what other improvements that I may not be aware of. But with regards to your comment, while I do see your comments, acknowledge the importance of that as it relates to this project. It's really germane to this.
All right, if you turn to
No, I would
figure
just
two.
add, sorry if I could just jump in, that would also would require a totally separate CEQA analysis. So.
Good point.
Very much outside of the boundaries.
Just as a matter of information, then on the far west side of the project, there is a street, and then there's a shaded area to the west of the street. What are we looking at there?
What are you in the staff report that you're citing?
This area here,
Oh,
what is that?
I believe that's a landscape. There's a sidewalk, of course, that is the street, and there's a sidewalk above the street on the west side of that. And I'm trying to zoom in here. We have the applicant here as well. Probably comment on that part of the that strip. It's kind of hard to look at this without.
It sure is.
It's hard to look at it. And I'm not sure if Lindy's on the line to comment, if she's our city engineer manager. But maybe the applicant can provide some context on what that strip of land adjacent to the road.
I'm hoping we've already gone through the environmental on that,
Oh.
and that's where a trail could go.
Yeah, and if I may, I think it's just important to remind that we're looking at the plans for the homes, not really the site design at this moment. So we're really focused on the facades of those buildings.
All right, could we hear from the applicant? Oh,
It's, sorry. The two?
I believe that's an open space.
Well, we can pull it up. We'll pull it up on the screen over here.
yes. Uh-huh.
Can you turn the microphone on, please? Thanks.
So this is an open space area with minimal landscaping. There was actually approved landscape plans that had more landscaping in there, but we were actually asked by city maintenance to remove some of that out because it should remain basically natural. So we were told. So it's an open space area as well, right outside of the sidewalk.
Well, it's, I know this has been around. This development plan has been around since I've been around, so I know, I know how old it is. But, it's a shame that we don't have the ability at this point to put a trail in there because I think it would be a natural. On regard to the home designs, I had some initial questions about the fire risk of putting homes quite so close together. But I found that there was a 1 hour firewall between them, which is not adequate, but staff assured me that the code has been changed to require fire sprinkler systems in those homes, and that really addressed my concern. I did, for what it's worth, look at the individual units, and there's a Craftsman, what?
It's Craftsman, Spanish, and I believe cottage.
right? None of those, none of those had a porch. You would think a Craftsman at least would have a porch. You would think a Spanish style would at least have a front patio. And I suppose some of that is restricted by the size of the lots. But it's, when you have a dense development like this, it is nice where people can get together and have a sense of community as you would if people were on their porches and talking to each other and that sort of thing. When I rode my bike through the development this last Sunday, I saw people taking their cars out of their garages and opening their garage doors open and then sitting with camp chairs in the garage with adult beverages and developing a sense of community. So even without the architectural niceties of a porch, people do make do. I also noted the lack of a neighborhood park, and there was a gazillion portable basketball hoops in the street and kids playing in the street. And the lack of trails, people are running, especially along Bella Breeze, and walking and running through the open space, the now open space, which will be developed with these houses in the future. So all that concerns me, and I don't think we should confuse this village with a village that we contemplate in the general plan, because it's well short of that. Those are my observations.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to comment on this item on the commission?
Chair. I maybe just have a quick follow-up comment / question, I guess, to this city staff. I know just on the other side of this, I appreciate Commissioner Jerry Johnson's comments about this with access to open space and creating an area to be able to enjoy that for the community, especially with, densely populated areas. I know it's right next to the park. One of my other concerns was there's not a lot of areas for kids to play other than there's that park. But kids are going to be going on the busy streets and whatnot to get over there. So I know this is probably out of the purview of this, but I don't know if there's opportunity for the city to look at. I think it would have been great to do some kind of a multi-use path trail system that kind of borders kind of around the back perimeter of all this to give people another option to move around and get around other than being exposed to crossing busy streets and playing out in the street and so forth. So I know that's not on the agenda today, but maybe just more of a comment. I don't know if that can be looked at, or if it's just completely irrelevant now based on zoning, that it's kind of going to be developed up to those limits and then it's not even possible beyond that. I'm not familiar with that, but I guess that's just what I wanted to tag on to those comments, is if there's any opportunity at all to kind of look at that in the future.
Thank you. We'll certainly have staff.
I had a question as well.
Please.
I was just wondering, I was a little curious about the 1 hour firewall. This might be an obvious question, but there's not allowed to be any windows on a 1 hour firewall at all?
Sorry, I can respond to that. I was a building tech in my past life. Yes, you're correct. Firewalls, typically, they're not allowed to have any type of like window opening. And in addition to the firewall now, the building code also requires that residences, like Mr. Johnson noted, they are required to be sprinklered as well.
Okay. That's it.
Chairman Gilbert, there is public hand raised on Zoom. Melanie, I will unmute your mic.
Good evening, Commission. Melanie Borchard. I want to echo the comments by Commissioner Johnson that I would also encourage, however we can, to include a trail system as this part of Lincoln is developed, because we have such a valuable and very useful trail system that everyone that I talk to appreciates here in Lincoln. So it'd be great to continue that as 12 Bridges is built out here. My other comments are going to pertain to all of the building that's going into this section of 12 Bridges and the access to the freeway and the school traffic that is right there during school and commuting hours. And it is already heavily trafficked for a large portion of the day. I mean, it can take 10 minutes to get to hit 65 from Cota Verdera. So we're talking about building hundreds of new homes and high density housing situations. And you think of all the cars that come with that. I'm very interested in what traffic planning has been set in, the general plan that was made, what traffic studies are coming up now or what's being planned, and how the city is planning to manage the traffic that is going to impact this part of Lincoln as this new area of 12 Bridges is developed.
Thank you. You indicated you agreed with Commissioner Johnson. Both of them spoke. I'd like to know which one you were agreeing with.
Sorry, I think that would be Eric Johnson. I'm sorry. About the trail.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else online?
There is no other hands raised.
Okay. At this point, this item now is before the Planning Commission, and the chair will recognize any proposed action.
I move to approve item 7B.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further comment before we move to a vote?
Just wanted as a follow-up to Eric's earlier comment. I think it would be valuable, at least for me, and I think maybe for other commissioners, if we could have a copy of the trail master plan distributed to us or emailed to us, one of those other. Thanks.
And I'd ask staff to take note of all of the comments that were made by my fellow commissioners, and if appropriate, let's fill them in with the information they need. Any further comments? Yes.
One quick question for staff. Is there an approved site plan for 27C?
Mel, I'm going to defer to you on that. Do you have it now?
Yeah, well, what's been provided in the staff report, that's figure 2. That is one of the exhibits for that tentative subdivision map. But I'm sure there's other exhibits that can be used. But as far as this staff report goes for this project, that's what's been provided, and it's applicable for this design review. So, but there are others.
Right. Sorry, I'm being clear. It's tangential to this specifically. This outline, this shows the previous approved village A and B site plans, and then we're approving homes that are going on there.
Mhm.
This doesn't show a site plan for C. Has
Oh,
one-
C.
Yeah. Has one been submitted yet?
That site actually has been approved. It was approved by the council last July or August.
Okay.
It's an apartment complex, 189 units. And I could offline, I could circle back with you.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, we'd like a roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote. Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to the second item, which was the minutes. And you wanted
Yeah,
to?
I just asked that they be removed. I noted that under item 10, general business, there is a typo. Thought you just want to correct that in your draft. It says Chairman Gilbert spoke with Mayor Joyner and they are in, I think that should be agreement of Mayor Joyner requesting the city manager. That's it. Simple.
That they're in agreement that there would be badges and business cards provided to all commissioners. City clerk asked me to contact everybody if they needed business cards because some business cards were already issued in the past. So are you seeing the word used?
Oh, I see agreeance. And so I thought that was meant to be agreement. So if agreeance is appropriate, that's fine. So we will leave it as is.
Okay.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve 7A.
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second. Any comments? Comments from the public? Roll call, please.
Just to clarify, was that motion by Jerry Johnson and then second by Kylie or Reedy?
Down this end, the motion in the second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Uckland,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
and Chairman Gilbert.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0-0. I have a question to our city attorney. A couple other boards I sit on. I don't know if the rule applies here, but where we have certain items, we can do those by voice vote. And others require us to have roll. And I'd like your opinion as to what we should do.
Because we have one member who is appearing remotely, we are required under the government code to do a roll call vote on each vote.
Very good. And if she were here, we could do certain things by voice vote.
Certainly.
And I'll talk with you about that offline so that we can maybe speed the roll calling issue up a little bit. Meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 7B. And I need, excuse me, I'm one step behind or one step ahead. It's item 8A, that's the one that I wanted to talk about for a moment. This afternoon, about 2 hours before the meeting, we all received an email. I know some of you worked, so you may not have seen it. I was at home and I got to see it. And it added on a list of conditions. And my question at this point to our city attorney is, does this change this item significantly enough because it did not go out 72 hours ahead of time? Will we still be allowed to take action on it this evening?
My general opinion would be yes, because it ultimately has to go to the city council and will be renoticed and published.
With no objection from my colleagues, we'll then move ahead with item 8A. First thing, we'd like a staff report, please. Microphone.
Can you hear me now?
That's very good.
Okay. Thank you for being here. My name's Dawn Becker, Associate Planner with the City of Lincoln. I'm here this evening to present the proposed Lincoln Retail Center. Hold on a second. There we go. The property owner of record is Alex Boone and represented by the applicants, Mr. Ken Fong with TK and Associates, whom is present this evening. I'll start with a brief PowerPoint presentation reviewing the staff report previously distributed to the commission earlier. The proposed project site is located at the southwest corner of Joyner Parkway and 3rd Street. It's zoned neighborhood commercial business professional with a general plan land use designation of neighborhood commercial. The property is currently undeveloped with access to stub sewer, water, and storm drain utilities. It's approximately 1.8 acres in size and is designated as Lot 5 of the Lair Estates Unit 3 and 4 General Development Plan. Existing development adjacent to the site consists of the City of Lincoln Community Center and Creekside Oaks Elementary School to the south. And there is existing residential development to the west. The proposed project is comprised of two entitlement applications, both a design review and a conditional use permit to allow for the construction and operation of a 12,053 square foot retail commercial building and a 1,500 square foot drive-through restaurant. There are three proposed access points to the project. Two are proposed off 3rd Street and one off Joyner Parkway. The project proposes 91 parking spaces, on-site landscaping, lighting, and 2 trash enclosures. A screen wall is proposed along the drive-through of the restaurant adjacent to Joyner Parkway. And there's a 6-foot sound wall that is proposed along the west and south property lines adjacent to the existing residential development, the community center, and Creekside Oaks Elementary School. Okay. The proposed design element and development standards for the project are consistent with the Lair Estates Unit 3 and 4 General Development Plan and complementary to the existing surrounding development. The project was considered by the Design Review Board on January 25th of this year and received an approval recommendation to the Planning Commission. Staff has reviewed the project and found that the proposal is consistent with general plan policies and development standards set forth within the zoning code and the Lair Estates General Development Plan. Upon further analysis, it's been determined that the project qualifies for an exemption determination under CEQA Act Section 15332, which is infill development, and is subject to 75 conditions of approval that have been implemented by the city. As of today's meeting, I received a few public inquiries from property owners in the adjacent residential development with concerns regarding the vicinity of the building to the rear property line and possible issues that may arise. Staff and the project applicant have been in communication to address these concerns. In conclusion, with the information provided within the staff report and within the presentation here, it is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution finding the project is exempt under CEQA 15332 and approving the design review and conditional use permit entitlements for the Lincoln Retail Center. That's the end of my presentation. The applicant, Mr. Ken Fong, is here along with staff to answer any questions the commission or the public may have.
Thank you. Questions regarding this project from my fellow commissioners? This time, Jerry?
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you put the slide back up and either you or the applicant show the traffic flow in and out of the drive-through use?
Yes. So let's see. I believe we are talking about down in this area, correct? Oh, shoot. Hold on. We're
Yeah,
going-
the whole flow I meant.
See if I can- Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I know. It's just. Okay, so the flow of the traffic would be around the drive-through here in this direction. So a stacking could occur within the parking lot here and around through the drive-through out through the exit.
How would an individual entering the parking area off from Joyner get into the drive-through queue there? Do they have to execute a 180-degree turn in front of facing traffic?
In discussions with Lindy Childers, the engineering manager earlier, the preferred way of route would be to come back through and around this way. However, it is possible that cars could come in and around this way. If this is a concern, staff can communicate with the applicant to provide directional signage and parking lot signage as well. But after speaking with engineering, this is a feasible way they could turn. The hope would be that this flow of traffic would continue to go in this manner and then around.
Anything further, Chair?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to just add a follow-up question to that. If you can go back to that diagram. Sorry, yeah, there we go. So just looking kind of further at the drive-through area there, what considerations are giving for like how many cars can stack kind of in that, little area? It looks like the window, if I'm seeing it correctly, is on the Joyner Parkway side, kind of halfway. So I'm just
it's
curious.
Right about here.
Yeah, so is there
Um,
any analysis or how many, vehicles fit
Yes.
within that spot before they start spilling out to the main parking area?
Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me flip back through my staff report. I apologize. I have a couple different entitlements right now. So this was reviewed by staff and by engineering to make sure that stacking would be adequate. It was determined that it was designed so. The queuing length for a car space would be 250 feet that would need to be provided in here. And this,
Is that 250 feet from the window back, kind of looking at the picture down to the bottom and kind of to the
down
left?
here, this window
Yeah.
here, or
Yeah, I guess, yeah, the 250 feet, is that from the window coming down?
it's my understanding that it's for the entire drive-through length. Mel, if I am, yes, it is. Yeah.
Don, excuse me.
Oh, is
Hi,
that-
Commissioner, this is SP, Senior
Mhm.
Engineer. Yeah, so the way it's measured, it's from the entrance, the driveway. So it would be the back of the curb at the entrance from the driveway measured all the way to the window.
So that's
the pickup
250,
window.
that's 250 feet?
Yeah, it should be 250 feet. That basically gives you stacking for about 25 cars.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
standard requirement we measure those against.
Huh. I mean, I don't see a scale on there, but that seems like way too many cars that can fit in there. Just thinking about, I mean, you see the scale of your parking spaces right there on the front of it. That's only one, like 6 or 7, and that's sideways. I guess that's just a concern that I kind of have with this. You get some, higher demand tenant in there. This is just gonna be kind of like in and out situation where we have them winding through the whole parking lot. So I don't know, I guess I'm not a fan of how that's oriented.
So-
And I might, would like to see it reconsidered. But that's
Yeah,
just,
so this is just a conceptual drawing, so they are conditioned to mitigate, if anything, they have to meet those standards at the improvement plan stage. So if there'll be any modification required, we'll make sure that those happen at the improvement plan stage, so.
so what we're voting on tonight doesn't lock that plan into place how it is right now? Is that what you're saying?
No, modifications are required. I mean, if they're required, they would be minor modifications would be, and those are normal. Those are normal. So we condition projects to make sure that all the standards are adhered to during the improvement plan stage. This being one of the important standards that they have to meet. So yes.
Okay, yeah, because I just
Yeah.
want to, best we can, avoid situations like we have elsewhere in Lincoln where you got just chaos happening in parking lots. Okay, I'll move on to my next question. How tall is the retail building?
Can you help me with that one?
Height of the building?
Yeah.
24 feet?
Yeah, and I believe the Lara Estates General Development Plan, I think limits it at, I read 43. Let me just confirm.
Mhm.
Oh, well, no. So what's the elevation on the small front? 24 feet of
I'm sorry, Mr. Fong, if you can step up to the podium so that people on Zoom can hear you as well.
On the drive-through,
Thank
the
you.
highest portion of the building is 24 feet and the lowest portion is 20 feet.
That's the drive-through or the retail?
Yeah, the
building?
drive-through.
Okay, and how about the retail building?
It's pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
About 24 feet?
Yeah.
So that's the part, I guess, that is next to, I guess, closest to the residential there currently? Okay,
And parapet walls serve for the purpose of screening any mechanical equipment that may be located on the top of the building
Okay.
from view.
okay. All right, thanks for answering that one. And then the setback for the retail building is 15 feet, is that right? Okay,
Correct, yeah.
from the property line?
Yes.
Okay, and then it looks like in the plans, there's landscape going in there. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about what the landscape is in that section?
In the rear, behind the. building
Yeah,
in
yeah,
particular.
between, the sound wall and the back of the building there.
So currently, it would probably be just some type of low-lying shrub that would be in there. However, discussions with the applicant today and addressing some concerns that have come forth from residential behind.
Mhm.
Staff is working with the applicant to put in trees in here to shade or to screen the rear of the additional screening of the rear of the building to the residents that are behind it.
Okay. Is that, did the applicant agree to that? Is that something that's gonna go in? Or just conversation at this point?
Looking on the landscape plan there, this is not the latest one. The latest one, we show trees in the back of the building.
Hmm.
So we have, I think 7 or 8 Flora nobilis trees back there. Pretty
Okay.
dense vegetation back there.
Okay,
And also we're gated on both sides of the rear end, so there's no access except for the employees.
oh, it's gated on the back there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, so we got gates that that was reviewed, design review, they requested the gates and we
okay.
unfortunate, this is not the latest one, but.
Can you
Okay,
maybe,
not the latest one,
can you maybe point out on the slide that's up on the computer for others to see at home too, like where the gates would be?
Probably located in this area. So at either side
Okay.
of the building.
Okay,
The idea would be to limit it to emergency city personnel and employees of the
Employees.
retail center only
okay,
to provide more privacy with
Sure.
there will also be, again, the 6-foot sound wall there, but also to provide more privacy to the residents that exist behind.
okay. All right, so it'll be restricted from just normal pedestrians going
Right.
back there, hanging out, and, okay,
Yeah, and that'll be reviewed by city staff prior to building permit issuance to make sure it's in compliance with safety and fire personnel, that everybody's on the same page.
okay. And then I think you just mentioned the sound wall is 6 foot tall?
Yes.
Okay,
It will run along the south and west property lines, so against the residential community center and the school that exists there.
okay. And then, okay, that's all I have at the moment. I'm curious to hear what the residents and anybody else has to say about it too.
Any of my other commissioners have any questions?
Chairman Gilbert, Commissioner Eklund's hand, was raised.
Yeah, let's recognize her, please.
Commissioner Eklund, did you want to say something? You put your hand down.
Yeah, I think Eric answered all my questions. I had the same ones. I was just wondering if there was anything that they were willing to do as far as vegetation on the other side of the wall for the local nearby residents. And I wanted to thank the applicant for being willing to do that should he be approved and meets up to code. And I also do really like the colors that they picked for the design review. And I also like that they took the brick facade all the way up the columns instead of stopping down at the bottom. Looks like that was a change that was that was added later on in the pictures. But that's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public? Excuse me, go ahead.
So I just want to make sure I understand what we're approving, because I'm hearing that that there's going to be changes made between this and like there are mitigations that are different from what I'm seeing to what is going to be eventually built. So I'm just trying to make sure that I understand, are we approving this with question mark changes that we don't know yet because they haven't been put in the plan we've seen? Like, I'm trying to get clear what I'm saying yes or no to or wanting to change.
Right. So for clarity, it's my understanding the changes that we have discussed. The first one was the concern with the stacking of the drive-through. And SP with engineering confirmed that it's typical that this is conceptual drawing. They can change. It's something they look for at the improvement plan stage to make sure it's meeting that criteria. So building may shift a little bit, making sure that it still conforms and is consistent with the setbacks and all that good stuff. The other thing that we are talking about here about changing is more on the design review aspect entitlement of this project with including additional landscape trees in the rear for additional screening to the property owners behind the wall, and to include fencing on either side of the building that will restrict public access to the rear. It'll be available only to city personnel, safety personnel, and to the employees of the retail center. So those will be reviewed by staff when it comes in for permitting. And prior to the issuance of permit, we'll make sure that that's all put together.
Okay, so go ahead.
Sorry to add, so so that's why it's a conditional approval. So what you're approving are those conditions. Should those be met, then you're approving the project as is. So those conditions give us leverage to kind of make sure that all the conditions are satisfied. I mean, all the standards are adhered to. So they'd be minor, maybe a parking lot shift here and there, but those would basically call for minor changes to the design, if at all.
Right, and I think there's some confusion here. If you want to be extra careful, add those conditions on. It sounded like the applicant maybe made a late revision that we didn't have for you to show with those gates and the trees, but I would feel free to add those trees as a condition just to make doubly sure, as well as those gates and the trees. I think that's probably about it, right? Okay.
I'd like to suggest that some of the things that my colleagues brought up this evening that are not in the offering we have, but those changes were made, if it's at all possible, that you present it with the latest version so we can save some time for everybody, including the public, where we ask about trees in the back and then we find out the trees are going to be there, but it's not in the plan. So I know sometimes there's a last minute change and those are okay as an exception, but generally speaking, what we see should be what we approve.
100%.
And when it's not that, the staff report should address those before my colleagues have to ask questions about it. Just make us a much more efficient organization if we work that way.
Of course,
Thank you.
noted, yeah.
So another hand here.
Nope.
Ginger, excuse me. Were you still, go ahead.
I just didn't follow up. So
Finish.
yeah, it's just so for sure, there's going to be 250 feet from the window to the beginning of the thing.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't get the chance to go through the pack that we got a few hours to go. Is that already in here or do we need to specifically add it or is it a code compliance thing?
It will be addressed. I believe it is already in.
It's a standard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Existing
it's a design standard, Commissioner.
Okay. So what's not in here is the trees and gates.
Right.
Okay, and then you prefaced that with a discussion with the neighbors. Have we gone full circle with the neighbors about those mitigations and has it satisfied their concerns or we don't know yet?
We don't know yet. I had discussion briefly this morning with one of the neighbors where that was a topic of conversation and that staff was open to building that into the design. And I apologize that we didn't have that layout for you. I think Ken and I work pretty well together, but I think it got lost in communication somewhere. So this is what the staff report was written off of and what I was aware of up until just now. So this is why staff said, yes, we are open to adding additional trees in the rear with screening and working with the applicant to do that and to put in the additional gates and fencing on the side as long as they will be able to be accessed by city personnel and don't create city emergency personnel and don't create any hiccups there.
Thank you. Do you have any additional questions? Jerry? I'm sorry, I didn't,
That's okay.
Mr. Kelly.
I just want to make sure I understand this too. When a restaurant comes in, decides this is where I want to build, at that point, we're going to see that project. And that's the point in time when we will also see conditions related to things like hours of operation. Is that correct?
Typically, yes, those are addressed under the conditional use permit.
At that
If
time?
one is needed for the use that's going in. So the conditional use permit is needed for the standalone because it has a drive-through. That's what spears that conditional permit.
Right, but at this point in time, we're not, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be talking about hours of operation for that facility because we don't even know what it's going to be. Is that a fair statement? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes.
The landscaping question, I think addresses one of my concerns, and that is a graffiti on a large wall like that. And I would stress that we're putting trees in, it probably should have some higher bushes too that would kind of prevent or discourage graffiti use. And that goes for all of the wall. The one thing that is not able to address is the exposed wall on the south side of the project, which is an open, vacant lot at this point. And is there any way that we can address that future problem now?
The on the community center side, are you
Yes.
speaking of?
Yes.
Um,
I mean, it's just a large, attractive wall that just calls out for
It's an
local
open
artists to.
canvas.
It's an open canvas, that's correct.
I understand your concern. Mel, I'm not sure exactly how we,
We could possibly condition that the owner paint graffiti, within 24 hours
That's
of.
part of the municipal
Yeah.
code.
okay.
So we also have a condition that requires anti-graffiti paint on some of the masonry walls that we have around.
Additional? Okay.
Chair, can I just have one more follow-up question?
Okay.
So as mentioned, anti-graffiti paint, I'm just curious what that means. Is it like a certain type of paint that doesn't allow other paint to adhere or?
Correct. Absolutely. Actually have it at my house for my children. It works great on interior walls as well.
Okay.
But yes, that is the idea of it. It's a specific formulated paint that in the event that it does get painted over, it's easier to remove and then to paint back over and color match to the existing color that's there. It's typically used by a lot of jurisdictions that have walls that are an inviting open canvas.
Yeah,
And
including
then just to-
Caltrans, yeah.
No, that's good to know. I didn't know it existed. That's neat. And then just follow up to Christian's comment. So there's an ordinance. It sounds like within 24 hours, the property owner has to cover up graffiti. Is that what it is? And then if so, I guess how is that enforced?
We have an ordinance that requires graffiti removal within 24 hours and it's enforced through code enforcement.
Any additional question? Okay, I'm going to suggest to my fellow commissioners where you have an opportunity and you have a concern about the project, if you can get a heads up to staff ahead of time, it will make everything work a little better. I took it upon myself to go to staff with an issue I had so that they were prepared tonight to address it. And that just supports your colleagues and the public's time, and it helps staff have at least some time from the time you get the agenda till the time we have the meeting to do research on that. So it would help us run a smoother meeting. Is there any comments from the public?
Chair, this is a
Are there?
public hearing. You need to open the public hearing.
Anything else from my colleagues? We'll open the public hearing.
There are hands raised on Zoom. Danielle Dost, I will go ahead and allow you to speak. Please unmute your mic.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Danielle Dewitt. I am one of the homeowners of the homes that shares a fence with this proposed shopping center, retail center. I am a mother of 2 young children who has been honestly losing some sleep since receiving this letter about 10 days ago. Extra loss of sleep, I should say. Not only a concerned mother of my 2 children, but also concerned for the kids that are in this area. As you guys know, we have Creekside Oaks Elementary School that butts up against this too. And we also have many kids I see out my window all day through, or not all day, I should say, in the morning and afternoon from Glen Edwards Middle School that walk home. That's their path to walk home too. I'm concerned about all the kids that walk home from school, to and from school. I'm concerned about just all the kids in general that are in these areas with what this shopping center could, brings to that. One of my main issues with this proposed shopping center is that I feel that it creates an alleyway, an L-shaped alleyway that goes along my fence and then that goes along the community center side too. It's very unsettling. I know that I had brought to Dawn's attention my feelings for that. And so now there's a possibility of it, and there's a fence going in on both sides, or a gate, I should say, I'm sorry. But I saw that Dawn had mentioned the side that's close to my house, but I didn't see where it was going to be on the other side. So I'd like to see that as well. I just, the idea of people being able to go back there, hang out there, the idea of possibly homeless hanging out there, drug use, my kids finding needles, these are all big concerns that I have for my kids and the kids in the community. And the 6-foot wall that's being proposed is the height of my current fence. I have my children that are playing in my backyard, that I'm concerned for people just being able to peek over the fence and see my children at play and be watching them. That is a big concern of mine and my husband's, with this wall being the same height of our fence. We were wondering if it's possible to change up the design in terms of the retail spaces. We are wanting to know if the retail spaces could go along the line of the community center side, which would leave more of an open space and not an alleyway that has the L-shaped. It would leave an open space on both sides of the business, rather than having a space that is butt up against our fence. Maybe move more parking into those areas where they propose to have the pathway for the employees of those buildings.
Excuse me, can I ask you to please wrap up? Your
Yes.
3 minutes is up.
Yes, I'm sorry. And then also I wanted to know, I saw when I had talked to Dawn, she had said 3 to 4 retail spaces, but in looking in the design, it looked like there was 9. So I wanted some clarification on how many retail spaces are going in.
Sorry, thank you very much for your questions. Do we want to address those now or after we finish the public hearing?
It's at the chair's discretion. I would generally suggest you take all the public testimony and then allow staff
Yes.
to answer questions.
Thank you. Is there any additional public testimony?
There is one more on
Please.
Zoom. Melanie, I will unmute your mic.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I'm going to also echo the great concern of children's safety, children's daily lives. with alleyways being created by this commercial center, walls going up, which how nice that an applicant is willing so quickly to suggest a wall and to landscape the wall. But I don't know that a 6-foot wall is a solution here for the protection of our children and for people's private lives. I wonder, when the comment was made about the drive-through situation, the 20 stacked cars is quote typical. Is that typical for Lincoln, where we have cars lined up through a parking lot trying to get into a drive-through? Or is that typical in the state? I would also throw out the idea, when Michelle was talking about moving the retail building, what if that was placed up against 3rd Street so it doesn't create that alleyway between the homes and the community center at all? A 6-foot wall is a nice idea. I don't think that should be the final solution here. It at least should be taller than that. And more landscaping there is, the more beautiful it appears and the better it is for our city. But putting a drive-through and a retail center in that butt up against our community center and people's homes where young families are being raised here in our city, I would wonder why we don't contact adjacent lots sooner than 10 days. These plans are in place in our city for a long time. People obviously have passionate input about new development, and we still are only giving 10 days notice to our public. I think that should be changed. Again, wall is a nice idea, but I think we can provide something better to our city here. So thank you.
And thank you. We have any additional people?
Online, oh, yes. One more, they just raised their hand. Paul Van de Shire, I will unmute you. I will allow you to speak. Please unmute your mic.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Now we can, thank you.
Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Vandershaar. I'm a father of 3 children. I live behind, adjacent where I will be facing when I come out my house, this property. A big concern of mine, like I said, you got the kids coming from the elementary school and the middle school. It's a huge walkway for a lot of children. There is already a heavy traffic flow where the runoff from the elementary school comes up Fuller and right up 3rd Street to exit onto East Joyner. That is a big concern of mine. And as that is a walkway with only the 3 entranceways and exits for that potential drive-through, it's going to create a logjam and a possibility for accidents to happen. As a resident living here for the last 5 years, I've witnessed 2 accidents right on the center divider where that drive-through is going to happen, and also 3 on the major intersection. Okay, so I just want you guys to take that into consideration for our children. That is all I have.
Thank you. Any additional people online?
There are no hands raised in Zoom.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Please.
Please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you, members of the council. My name is Shalyn Warner. I am a resident of Ragsdale Court across from A Hart. We are all impacted by this proposal, and I can tell you that receiving this notice raised several red flags, not only for me, but for the neighbors. I chose to come here in person today to be the face of a neighborhood that has major concerns. Just looking at the proposal today, I can tell you that there are major concerns that have already been addressed regarding traffic. I can tell you that that median that's in between where they are proposing for the drive-through to come through, people are going to come down 3rd Street, cut the median and come right through. You're going to have accident after accident after accident. Children have already been mentioned. That's a major concern. I, for one, have already provided first aid and CPR to a resident who had an accident at the corner of Joyner and 3rd while I was coming home. I don't want to have to do that again. With regards to the proposal for a fast food restaurant, not only do you have the traffic concerns, but then you also have fumes, cars just sitting there. and there are exhaust fumes wafting over. The wind comes right down 3rd Street, right over Joyner in the direction of our homes. That is the natural flow of the wind. We're going to be getting all those car fumes. You're going to have people sitting there with their car stereos blasting. The noise is going to go up. You're going to have issues with not only graffiti, but other elements, drugs, potential violence. We have had an increase in crime rate that has been coming up in that area as well. Not excited about it. Then when you get into the actual fast food, you also bring in pests. So then you have issues with dumpsters, even if they get cleaned out every day, you're still going to have things, French fries go on the ground, you're still going to have increased pests. You're also going to have, if it's anything like an In-N-Out station, you're going to have the smell of fried food lingering in the air, and it's never going to go away. That oil and grease that gets wafted up from the vents is going to sit down on our homes, in our pools. It's going to mess up our neighborhood. It's going to land on our solar systems, where it's going to impact on a greater element. It's also, if you're talking about putting trees, if we're talking about solar, there are residents in that area that do have solar on their homes, and the sun comes up in the morning right from that direction. Those trees are going to block that, impacting the ability for our residents to take on the benefit of their solar system, which they've had installed. The issues go on and on and on and on. And I think that at this point, proposing something like this in this area as a primary residential space is going to have a more negative impact than it will have a positive impact for our neighborhood. I think that our neighborhood is really amicable, and we're really open to a lot of different developments. We've already got another housing development going up across the street. There are other proposals for more commercial additions across from the fire station as well. But this in this area, or the one across from it, not the right place for this development. And I think that seeking an alternative location would be the best choice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak, or anybody else online? I did see, I think I saw on the screen that my colleague, I don't know if it was a raised hand, but yeah, from Whitney, but we'll deal with that as soon as we close the public hearing. If there is nobody else from the public.
There is no one on for the public on Zoom.
Okay, well, the applicant, do we want them to speak during the public hearing or after we close it?
That's entirely up to you.
Public hearing is closed. The applicant, I'll call on the applicant. Would the staff please now address any questions that came up for the edification of my colleagues? I will certainly give you time to speak.
Okay, you guys can hear me, right? I wanted to address Danielle's concern. She wanted us to point out where the proposed gate and fencing would be to limit pedestrian access to the back of this rear here. The idea would be to put a locked fence and gate combination here and one down here. That would be where the two locations would be. If staff and the applicant are open to it, and as long as it is consistent with what fire and emergency services would need, we could address maybe placing one somewhere within this area, as she's concerned to create this whole kind of L-shaped alleyway that's happening here. I know that Melanie had concerns regarding the stacking within the drive-through. And SP, I think you can help me out here. This is a city standard that we have, so it's consistent throughout the city. I can't speak to other jurisdictions within the state of California as to what their drive-through standards are. That's just what we currently have for the city of Lincoln.
Yeah, Don, and that's a standard we have, and it's very old standard that we have that I believe it comes from either Sac County or Placer County, but it's very familiar, similar to what other agencies do. And also I wanted to make sure I have an update on from the architect. I believe we have a stacking, the architect had confirmed, of 272 feet on site. if that helps. I thought I'll just let you guys know.
Thank you.
Another item I wanted to address was, I've heard several concerns with the noticing. Let me just, I did write some notes down to myself here. As far as noticing goes, property owners within a 400-foot radius of this parcel were notified on April 6th, that the letter was mailed out April 6th, 2023. And it was also published within the Lincoln News Messenger on that day.
So while you're doing that, could you state what the requirement is? Number of days?
It's 10 days prior to the hearing.
Thank you. I was aware of that, but I wanted you to get it on the record.
Make me nervous. No, I'm kidding. So they were,
You're doing wonderful. So go ahead.
so they were both mailed out to property owners and published within the paper on April 6th. I'm trying to think of what other, I was writing notes down here as we go. I know that there are concerns with the traffic increase to the area. This was looked at by engineering. And the size of the development and the potential traffic increase that it would propose did not require an additional report or study to be done.
Okay.
And
And while you're up there, if we have any additional questions, and I do have some, tell me when the shopping center site was originally approved.
so the Lara Estates Unit 3 and 4 General Development Plan was originally adopted via ordinance 510B in 1988.
1988. And
yes.
what did it say, if anything, about the site?
This site in particular, there are, let's see if I can use my little, I know
I mean,
it's not,
did it
a-
say it was going to be a shopping center, commercial?
it said it was designated these sites right in here, which is, I know it's hard to tell, but this was back before a lot of our infrastructure went in.
Sure.
This would be Joyner and this would be Third. These sites here were designated as neighborhood commercial business professional. So it was designated as that at that time.
So I only ask that question because quite often people move into a home or property and something comes up here at the council or the planning commission, and they don't realize that 5, 10, 20, 30 years before they dreamt of coming to Lincoln, there was already something proposed which they may have some concerns about. And the rule is go to City Hall and you see what's proposed, and then you make your decision as to whether you're going to put your business or buy a home or whatever it is. We can't, as a city, deny somebody a right which they vested in 20, 30 years ago. We can do our best to make it as compatible in the community, but we can't take away their property rights, just like they can't take away my property rights. So I just wanted to get that on the record if I could. I'll open it up for my colleagues if you have additional questions. Jerry, please.
This isn't exactly a question, but a concern. Most cities have some kind of design guidelines for drive-throughs that don't allow a drive-up window on their primary, what we call grand boulevards. And certainly Joyner is one of a half a dozen grand boulevards of Lincoln. And that concerns me. I've discussed this with staff, and I suggested that there be a design guidelines for drive-through uses prepared so developers have some reasonable expectations to what is required, and if they abide by the guidelines, will be approved. And I hope staff does follow through with that. But I'm concerned with the traffic flow and with that aesthetic issue. And I would plan, and unless I'm talked out of it, to make a motion to send this back to design review and staff to reconsider the location of the drive-through. Here's one with a corner, just taken from someone else's guidelines, a corner location that would work. In this case, I don't want to redesign the darn thing now, but I think it does take some more thought and study.
If I may, I would just note, just to kind of clarify, this is a conditional use permit. So it's entirely under your purview to deny this drive-through if you see fit. So just to remind you that this is not an as of right, it's not allowed as of right. You are able to condition it or deny that use if it's not appropriate for a neighborhood serving commercial area.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see, I have a few things. I appreciate the comments that were made. Just want to address one of the chair's comments right before. I do agree it's nice to, study as much as we can before, but just want to remind everybody that some of us are working, full-time. And I do my best to try to prepare ahead of time. But I find myself often staying up really late with, a young child and just life happening. So I appreciate the comment. And I'll work to do my best to prepare, but oftentimes it's, reading here and there where I can, and don't always have the opportunity to go through everything, especially since it's only handed out, the weekend before. But I'll do my best. Let's see. So I do appreciate Commissioner Jerry Johnson's comments about the drive-through, and also Christian, pointing out that this is a conditional use permit. So it's up to us to determine if it's not, if we don't feel that it fits, we don't have to, approve a conditional use permit. I just want to clarify. So the resolution that we're voting on tonight, the conditional use permit's wrapped up in that, correct? Okay. So if we feel like the conditional use permit shouldn't get approved, then it's just a no on the whole resolution.
I think you could carve out the conditional use permit. It's a separate permit within the overall permit and just deny that component of it.
Okay. And so just to clarify, so hypothetically, if I did carve out the conditional use permit, that's just for the drive-through section? Okay.
Correct.
That's the use that requires the conditional use permit.
Okay. All right, thank you. I do want to address, so I saw that in the original plans, it allows up to an 8-foot wall, sound wall. Sounds like from the, residents, they'd appreciate a higher wall. So I'd like to, I don't know, make a condition that the wall is 8 foot high. I think it goes up to that.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I asked for if there were any additional questions. I want to let the proposer get up to speak. He may address some of your issues when he's given a chance. So I'll give you another chance, but
sure,
after he speaks.
Okay, as long as I get a chance to add conditions. You can promise me that. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just, I jotted a few notes. Let me see if there's any questions in here then. No, I think that's it.
You'll get another chance.
Okay, thanks.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so my questions are to the applicant. If they're going to speak again here, are they amenable to putting in an 8-foot wall on the western side, which would be the wall adjacent to the residence? And then would they be amenable to moving that gate on the southwest side of the property to within 5 feet of the building front, so that that area, restricted area, is L-shaped as opposed to a back alley, so that south side would be, you wouldn't have access from the general public into that area.
Ken, would you like to come up and address the question? Yeah, go ahead. It's all you.
Good evening, Commissioner Gilbert and members of the Planning Commission. I heard all the requirements for the project. Based on the conditions of the approval, we agreed to all the conditions. There's a couple items we need clarifying if we get our approval. I'd like to speak regarding the drive-through, how we juxtaposition the drive-through. We looked at a couple of other alternatives, putting the drive-through where near the residential, and we thought I did a project where we had a drive-through right next to the residential, and then the noise from the speakers and the drive-through. That's the reason why we kept the drive-through away from the residential, where we are near the street. So, and also regarding our 6-foot high wall, I'd like to see if we can keep it. There's no traffic back there, vehicle traffic. We have both ends gated, so the only noise is going to be from the commercial people, and there's very little noise that come from the tenants, and we'd like to keep that. There's enough. Unfortunate, our latest landscaping, which we submitted a while back, shows that back with a large amount of Laurel nubilis trees back there. So there's a lot of screening protection from the back of the building back there. So we got nice landscaping back there. Also, the building wall from the building actually acts as a protection from noise from the rest of the parking lot in the front and the traffic. So that wall was really a sound wall. If it was open, you get more sound traveling there, but we got a 20-foot high wall back there. So that helps with the sound issues back there. The project, we followed all the guidelines from the initial project that was developed back in 1988. All the studies were done when that development was approved. All the initial studies for the development was done, and our site here is just having the utilities hooking up to our site. So most of that, all the studies and everything that were done on the initial development study. I'm open to answer any other questions you have.
Do you have tenants committed?
Matter of fact, one of the items that were placed from Robert, our initial planner, and Don has done a great job taking over. But Robert required us to have a lease before he even looked at it. So we went and got a lease. We're proposing the lease has been signed. Well, it's been signed, but if we don't have a project, there's no lease. It's going to be an Asian coffee and tea place serving drinks. So it's real popular. It's a really popular commercial tenant, and we're looking forward to developing the drive-through for this tenant. So we do have a tenant for that. On the commercial end, it's a spec building. We're hoping to have maybe 5 or 6 tenants in there. And once we get it built, I'm sure we're going to lease it out. It's a nice facility, nice corner of this development.
I was going to say thank you for coming tonight. I remembered chatting with you during the design review board process. And I do have a question. I think that we asked it then, but I don't remember. The distance between where the drive-through restaurant's going to be and the homes that back up to the retail side. Do you remember what the distance is, how many feet we're talking about? I mean, it's,
On the commercial building, we're 15 feet from the back.
I understand, yes,
Yeah.
but from the drive-through,
Oh, the drive-through? That's gotta be almost 40 feet
all right, in
from the residential property line.
addressing, the resident concerns with,
Yeah.
I would say that's way more. than
probably way
40
more.
feet,
I would
yeah.
think.
The
it
building
would be
itself is 20 feet
200.
deep, so yeah,
Yeah.
200.
We're a pretty good distance.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was in addressing the issue regarding the oil noise and.
Yeah,
and
you know
so-
the-
Because that can be a concern. And then as far as the drive-through, that also has inside seating, does it not?
Have a what?
Inside seating? You said a coffee and tea?
Yeah, it's minimal seating. It's
Okay,
not a
so-
large.
So primarily it
Yeah,
would
the
be,
whole building's only 1,500 square feet.
got it, all right.
So you can't put a 5,000 square foot restaurant in there.
I understand, thank
Yeah.
you.
So it's minimum tables for that type of tenant.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I was wondering if there was any room for outdoor seating at this coffee and tea place. Looks like there's like a cement pad out in the front.
Outdoor seating at the restaurant site?
Well, we haven't worked, we'd like to work that out with the planner. But we do have outdoor seating in the area where you see the crosshatch area, that could be fenced off with some seating area out there.
Lovely. Okay, thank you.
So we'd like to make this a neighborhood facility.
Mhm.
I've developed this kind of facility in a number of cities, and there's a lot of concerns on drive-throughs. I go through this on every project, and we usually solve the problem, and 20 years later, the community's been really happy with the shopping center.
Well, someone made reference earlier on to In-N-Out. And it turned out that the In-N-Out that was built in Lincoln was, after a little short time, got very busy and created a tremendous problem. Well, In-N-Out stepped up, put a couple employees outside, started queuing the cars in another location, and 90% of the problem, maybe 95% of the problem disappeared. So when a property owner in the city work together, we can usually solve those problems. And I can't imagine, I used to finance businesses, that a 1,500 square foot building could ever approach the volume of business that In-N-Out, the largest volume per square foot restaurant drive-through in the world. We would never approach that with a 1,500 square foot.
Well, it's a funny thing, I go to In-N-Out that just opened up in Elk Grove, and the drive-through is in the middle of the parking lot with people lined up to give directions, and the center is a Costco, so you can imagine the traffic in Costco when they still got a In-N-Out burger there.
Yeah.
Very successful, and they managed the drive-through.
Yes, please.
Some questions of staff.
Sure.
So in the conditions of approval, where are the trees addressed that are going to be between the back of the retail building and the landscape area?
So this will be a condition of approval that's added at this hearing. They're not addressed currently in the conditions that are in front of you because they came to light basically as of this morning with discussions with the applicant to add them in.
So are you going to propose some language here for us for consideration? Or do we have to come up with that language?
Either or, I mean, we have a condition that references landscape plans already built in there. I think number 37, I believe it is. We can add some modifications to that. I forget the exact number, but there is a landscape plan requirement there, and maybe expand that a bit to include references to trees, screening trees along the back, the western end of the property. That would be one way of doing it. That way it's cleaner and then we can move forward.
I
That
just
would
don't know
be
how
ideal,
specific we
yeah.
need to get.
You could
in
leave it at the discretion of the planning,
staff,
planning
okay,
manager and
to
staff and
address-
trust
to
us
address
to
that. Okay.
take care of it. yeah.
Yeah,
Which is-
condition 35 gives the director leverage to approve the landscaping
But
plan.
35, thanks, SB.
35,
Just
yep.
make sure that requirement is followed up by our staff and that they meet what was discussed this evening.
And so that would be the same with the gates.
Am I working? There we go. Yes, correct. That would be the same with the gates. And so for clarity, Ken, Commissioner McKinney did ask, are you open to placing a gate along the south property line that's set back approximately 5 feet? Let me show you on the plan. Okay, so the idea would be to place a gate,
Right here.
right?
Right.
And then the
we were
commissioner is
going over
asking
on that one.
on here,
Right,
and you're agreeable to that?
yeah.
And-
I thought we agreed that in design review, we pointed that out.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I apologize. I don't remember that being part of our
Yeah.
design review process, but that's what we're working together here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the other question for clarity's sake is the Commissioner McKinney also asked if you are, what your position is on having an 8-foot wall and rather than the 6.
Well,
Just on the one side.
Just
not-
on the
not
residential?
Just on the residential side only.
Here.
get your approval, I agree, we'll agree to it.
Thank you.
The other alternative we can do, if they're worried about security, we can plant type of landscaping where you won't get anybody climbing over their walls or anything. I've done it with, I think it's called, those mulberry berry with thorns on there. Yeah, you know, I did the whole driveway with that type of bush there and nobody ever climbed over the walls.
Yeah, I would just point out, I think you were making the point that it does seem unnecessary, given that you have a 20-foot back of building wall there, a 15-foot setback, and then a 6-foot wall, and then trees within that 15-foot landscaping. So just take that into consideration. It's pretty robust buffer there as is.
Yeah, we're just trying to,
Yeah, plus the gates.
we want to keep, make the community happy, so.
That's your
but I think, I
That's
don't
your
think,
customer base.
I don't think it's necessary, but if the commission wants to, we'll do it. And we want your approval this evening.
I do not. Thank you.
You kind of already touched on this and I was just, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on the details or between you and the staff. You point out the placement of the building and obviously there's a sound benefit from where it is, but it creates this L that we're going to hopefully gate and mitigate the issue that the neighbors had. But maybe you could speak a little bit to the placement of the buildings relative to the lot and what led you to the placement you have now.
What was that again?
I think he's asking for clarity as to why you decided to design the project the way you did with where the
why we-
buildings are placed.
Yeah, the
Is
placement
that
of the
correct?
buildings.
Site plan.
Why
Yeah.
we placed the building back there
Yeah.
was just so we have it was the best way of getting access and everything with the fire trucks and everything, with the access, with the building in the back there. And we've laid out the building fronting 3rd Street and we just didn't get enough parking spaces that were really functional. And this is the way we opened it up and we picked up some parking and plus we're able to get a drive-through fire truck to circulate around you can imagine if we put the buildings 50 feet of building there, you got very small frontage of sidewalk. It's just like a 7-Eleven with a row of parkings there. We're trying to make something efficient and workable so the shopping center, you know, can survive. You know, so parking was one of the concerns, and the circulation of you know, public vehicles, the other concern.
Thank you.
Are we finished with questions over here? Over here, Jerry has, and then you.
Yeah, if you could put the diagram up again for us. This, you know, I'm trying to get away from get to an attractive looking project from Joyner Parkway.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking at if there's a reason not to do it in the corner, another way to do it is keep the building approximately where it is. You know, maybe a little towards Joyner, and then have the turn in back of the building rather than in front of the building. And I think that would address that 180-degree turn that I'm concerned about.
Oh.
And so you're working from 3rd Street. So your waiting line is parallel to 3rd Street and then turns, well, it turns in front of the building instead of behind the building, although that now becomes behind the building. So you have an attractive front on Joyner.
Well,
And you address the traffic flow at the Joyner driveway. Was that something that you considered?
well, I like the position where we have our drive-through. I think that's,
I'm saying keep the building there if you want,
yeah.
or move it 30 feet or 15 feet towards, but then have the driveway in the parking lot area rather than right in front of the building and in front of Joyner Parkway.
Oh, I see.
I just would like to caution the commission and get us back to the question that is actually before you, and it's the approval or not approval of this design review and the conditional use permit. It is not the role of this commission to, on an ad hoc basis, be recommending plan changes here on the fly. So it's either approved or it's not. And if it's not, then the applicant can make changes and come back or file an appeal or do whatever it is that they elect to do. But it's not really before this commission to start making changes to this plan and design on the fly.
I was not suggesting that we do that tonight, but I'm looking for alternatives rather than turning it down. I'm at least up until the pandemic, I was very much opposed to drive-through uses like this. But the pandemic showed that there's a very good use for these things, and we shouldn't out of hand turn them down. So I'm reluctant to say no tonight, but I'd like to find a solution. And I think the solution would probably be to defer it to further study by staff and by design review.
Jerry, excuse me, but this is questions. We're not making a decision now. That's number one. Number two, we can't change the conditions tonight. So if you oppose to this, the way it's been proposed to us, you oppose it, you need to vote against it. But we don't need to try and have the man stand there and redesign his project when he doesn't have a professional staff to tell him the financial and all the other ramifications of making a change such as you're proposing. I'm not saying your change is wrong. If you feel it's right, you vote against the project.
Well, I think there's a middle ground.
But we can't make that decision tonight, is the whole point. There can be a middle ground. But the decision, as our attorney has advised us, is to vote for or vote against the project. That's what staff's brought us in their discussions with the developer, and that's our decision tonight. These other decisions will come at a later date if we turn the project down.
I respectfully disagree, but that's fine.
You're certainly welcome to disagree with me. I listened to my attorney. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just real quick, supporting Commissioner McKinney's thing about the 8-foot wall. From what I heard from the residents, it's not necessarily a sound issue. It's someone peeking over your fence. I'm 6'5". If I work there, I can peek over their fence. And I think that's what they're concerned about. And I totally get that, you know, there's a 25-foot wall in front of that wall. But, you know, anybody back there as tall as me is going to be, you know, not going to be, but could be looking over the fence, you know, while they're out there trying to enjoy their time. So that's just my support of the 8-foot wall condition.
Anything else? Anything else from the commissioners?
Just a comment. I support the way the orientation is of the drive-through, with the drive-through on Joyner. I think it does help mitigate sound. And that was one of the reasons why you designed it that way. And so I just wanted to note that that was one of the things I looked for on this, is where is the drive-through, and that it was, you know, I was glad to see it was on Joyner and not parallel to Third or on the other side where it's closer to the residential property. So I know that's a concern for you, Commissioner Johnson, but Jerry Johnson, this is tough. Thank you, Jerry. But I just want to note that that was one thing I looked at, was where is that? And so I was glad to see that was the orientation.
Well, I think and I hope that we're at the end of a question. And the chair would like to entertain a motion with anything that we've discussed built into the motion, please.
Sure. So there are sort of three things that I'd like to see added to the conditional as a condition, and they can be in 35 or wherever staff feels is best placed. The first is that there's a gate at the two locations within 5 feet of the northwest and southeast corners, right? No.
Southwest and north,
Southeast,
southeast and northwest.
right.
You got it.
Okay. Second is that the wall with residentials is 8 feet. And the third is stipulating the landscaping and trees in the L per the previous negotiated thing.
Is that a motion?
Yes, please.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Okay, and now is there any discussion on the motion? Before we
So
vote?
just clarifying that this is a motion to adopt the resolution
Yes.
with simply, okay, so simply to amend the conditions of approval.
I'm just amending.
Were we going to,
In case people have other things they want to do.
were we going to add the amendment on trees, or were you going to do that separately?
I did all three.
All three, okay, all right.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
I just want to clarify, this is just to amend the conditions? Or is this the full resolution? Okay, yes.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Now we'll move to the second motion. Is there somebody that would like to suggest a motion?
I'll move that we return this to design review and staff to review not only the location of the in and out, the drive-through, but the traffic pattern of the entire development.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
What do you I assume that this was already looked at in design review. Can someone speak to that first? And then second, who can tell me what was reviewed and that kind of stuff? And second, do you have specific goals in mind beyond what they may have already considered?
Yes, to have the front of the drive-through be exposed to Joyner, whether it's in its current location or not, that's fine with me, as long as it has an attractive exterior and the drive-through line and the window is not on Joyner.
And does the seconder agree to that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Let's vote on that.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
No.
Commissioner McKinney,
No.
Commissioner Reedy,
No.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
No.
Chairman Gilbert.
No. Now, Chair will entertain a motion to approve this as proposed,
So moved.
as amended, of course. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes.
She second, didn't she not?
Good, good.
Yeah, I already got her
Good.
vote.
Okay, 7-0, 5-2-0.
Yes.
Okay. So that completes item 8B. Thank you for being here, sir. Excuse me, yeah, A. We're now on 8B, consideration of a city initiative general plan amendment pre-zoning and pre-annexation proceedings of assessor parcel APN 021-321-091 and adjacent portions of state highway. Staff, please.
Good evening, Mel Pavolinas, Planning Manager. I'm gonna present my staff report. I'm gonna show some slides, information that you already have presented to you. So this request is a city initiated general plan amendment, pre-zoning and pre-annexation of parcels, APN 021-321-091 and portions of Highway 65. The importance of this is that if this is to satisfy a condition of LAFCO, local agency formation commission, so that it would then pave the full annexation of the special unit district B, area B, northeast quadrant, specific plan. I'm gonna do a quick, so this is shown here is the map of the Sud B area plan. This plan was adopted by your commission, city council back in, I think, 2017, 2019. As a requirement of that annexation, there were requirements for of this approved specific plan to be annexed into the city. And that went through the process this past March 8th. It was adopted by LAFCO, but there were conditions of approval as a result of that adoption. And showing another map here, this is the land use plan of the adopted specific plan for Sud B. The pink areas are the commercial areas. It would encompass about 1 million square feet of commercial. And the yellow areas are the residential areas. And the green areas are open space corridor. So keeping this in mind, on a far east corner along Highway 65, that triangle piece right there is this piece right here shown in the dashed red line. So what's required of the city as a condition of the LAFCO annexation is to add, there's a gold upside down triangle denoted by number 1 and a portion of Highway 65 denoted by number 2. Those are the 2 properties. They're outside of the Sud B area. They are within the county area. So by default, this request is to kind of clean up the mapping and also to add that into the city. So those are the properties. And of course, as part of the requirement to do this is that we have to apply any applicable land use and zoning designations that matches our designations. Sphere of influence is in purple. City limits is in the kind of yellow, pale yellow area. And as I said, the red dashed lines are the Sud B plan area. So as corresponding to those numbers that I mentioned, the APN 021321 091 is about half an acre in size, very small. It has a designation of ag in Timberland per the county land use general plan, and it has a zoning of 80 acres minimum. Some kind of designation acronym there. Converting it into our zoning, it would be open space, general plan land use designation, and of course, the zoning would be corresponding open space. That property is owned by the city, and it's undeveloped. There are some sewer infrastructures in it that were installed many years ago, but as it stands, really, it's at the corner of Moore Road, which is the easterly property that connects to the triangle, and it connects at the corner right there, round corner. It's undevelopable because it's pretty small. It is also encumbered by the Auburn Ravine Creek. So it's not, the city is not has no intention to develop that site or anybody at all that we want to do anything with that. That's why our recommendation is to apply the open space land use and open space zoning to it. The other parcel, it's within Caltrans right away. So it's an existing right away, and it's just a matter of, again, just adding it into our city boundary, and there's no proposed zoning or general plan land use designation at all. So it's a clean, we just take it over in terms as part of the city, and but without any designations being applied. So that is the goal of this request is to do just GPA and pre-zone and pre-annex so that we can satisfy the conditions imposed by LAFCO on a Sud B and EQ annexation. We did analyze it according to applicable general plan. We identified a couple of exemptions from CEQA that we've identified here in the staff report. And as such, with your recommendation, with our staff recommendation for your commission to move forward to the city council that your commission, going back here, to adopt resolution 2023-06 to recommend the city council that this GPA pre-zone and pre-annexation be deemed exempt per CEQA section 15319 and 15061B3. And as well as, and lastly, to adopt resolution 2023-07, recommending to the city council approval of the GPA pre-zoning and pre-annexation of these parcels and portions of Highway 65. That's the background, just a quick summary of what's been presented to your commission already. Any questions, let me know.
Great. Any questions of staff, please?
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question on figure 3, where you show the orange area 1 and 2. There's a tiny purple sliver right there next to 1 that isn't included in the city limits or the orange area. I assume that's supposed to be right away 65. I just wanted to make sure that that's included and it's not going to be some little island that's left.
Based on our mapping, this is what's shown here is what's shown. I didn't pick up on that honestly because it's still part of the right of way, the highway.
Uh-huh.
But just kind of in accordance with what's been asked of the city staff to do, we're just following that. And this is what's currently mapped, unless Christian has any other information that
I
would.
would just say we have a surveyor who's been speaking directly to the county to triply
Okay.
make sure that what is being annexed will satisfy the county. So this is really just an exercise of jumping through hoops.
Okay.
And so take sympathy on us on.
Oh, no, that's fine. No, I figured it could just be, yeah, a line, but just wanted to clarify that and make sure.
Any additional questions? Any questions from anyone else on the planning commission? Any other comments from staff? Okay, we'll open public hearing. Citizens wishing to speak, please let me know if there's anybody online. or
There
in
is
the
no
audience.
one, there's no hands raised on Zoom. I did not receive any comment cards.
How about our commissioner that's on the East Coast? You have any thoughts?
No, I already spoke with staff earlier today, just getting clarification on this agenda.
Yes. I assume they were able to answer your questions for you.
Yep.
Good, thank you. Okay, the chair then will ask for a motion.
Can we close the public hearing,
Close the
please?
public hearing. Ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I recommend, or I move approval of the proposed general plan amendment, pre-zoning and pre-annexation of assessors parcel number APN 021-321-091 and adjacent portions of State Highway 65.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? So roll call vote.
Clarification, this is the determination that it is exempt for CEQA. We are doing resolution 2023-06 first. Yes,
We have a motion and a second.
I'm ready for roll call.
Clarification, I would assume that I was moving for all of the actions. I can't do that.
We need to take each resolution separately because we're doing a roll call vote with a remote attendee.
Okay. So then that motion applies to eight, well, okay.
206.
We need, there's two motions. We need a motion to adopt resolution 2023-6 as stated here, which includes the CEQA findings. And then secondarily, we'll need a motion on 2023-7.
My motion then was for the first.
Okay, and we had a motion and a second. Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you everyone for the clarification. Roll call, Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes. Motion passes 700. Next is agenda item.
No,
Oh,
I will
one more
move to
Excuse
adopt.
me, the second.
I'd like to move to
Yes,
adopt
yes.
resolution number 202307.
Second.
Second.
Motion in the second.
We'll give it to Whitney. She has a time delay.
Her motion, the second was delayed.
Yeah,
3 hours.
that one's Whitney's.
Okay, roll call vote, and that would be Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes. Okay, motion carries 700. Next agenda item is 9A. We need a general plan annual progress report. And staff will be making that.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Arvin Sanchez, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. So I'll be presenting on that item tonight. I'm currently in my office. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so the project we have before you is the 2022 General Plan Annual Progress Report with attached housing element APR. You may be wondering, what is this report? So throughout the state of California, all local jurisdictions are required to submit a general plan annual progress report. According to planning and zoning law, beginning with California Government Code Section 65400, establishes the requirement that each city and county prepare an annual progress report on the status of the general plan implementation. This state law also requires that the general plan annual progress report must be provided to the local legislative body, which is in this case for the city of Lincoln is the city council. And it's also provided to the Office of Planning and Research and the Department of Housing and Community Development by April 1st. The housing element portion of the APR is prepared through the use of a standard form and Excel workbook adopted by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, which is why it has been included as a separate attachment, attachment number 2. In addition to state law, the city of Lincoln also requires, we have a general plan policy LU 8.1, which requires us to share the annual progress report with the Planning Commission as well before we take it to City Council. So just a quick summary about the general plan annual progress report. The City of Lincoln's general plan has a total of 103 implementation measures across all 7 elements. The table found on this slide is a summary of the progress the city has made towards implementing all 103 implementation measures so far. Additional specific information about the implementation measures can be found in attachment 1. So the City of Lincoln's general plan has, again, 103 implementation measures. So far, we've completed 12%. There's 76% is ongoing, and 21% of those are currently incomplete or to be worked on in the as part of the general plan implementation. This slide is the housing element findings. So just some interesting facts about the housing element annual progress report. Again, it's required by HCD that we submit our information as far as like how many dwelling units were permitted in the calendar year. So for in 2022, the city was able to issue permits that created 860 dwelling units. And that's broken down to 834 were single family dwellings, 16 duets, and 10 accessory dwelling units. As part of the housing element annual progress report, we also, this is a report for how we're doing with our regional housing needs allocations, our RHNA numbers, and what the progress is. So the housing element, we're currently on our housing element 6 cycle, which started on May 15, 2021 through May 15, 2029. And so the city of Lincoln was allocated 5,120 units that we need to develop in the next subsequent 8 years up to 2029. And so far in the previous 2 years, or in 2021 through 2022, we've accomplished 1,295 units that we've added to try to chip away at the RHNA numbers. And so far, by 2029, we still have 4,301 to go. So that pretty much leads us to the recommendation. Staff recommends the Planning Commission receive and file the information contained in the staff report, the annual progress report attachments, and the following actions. Determine that the general plan and housing element annual progress report is on a project under section 15378 of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA guidelines, and review the 2022 general plan annual progress report and the housing element annual progress report, and recommend that the City Council receive and authorize the annual progress report be forwarded to both OPR and HCD. So that concludes my presentations. If the Planning Commission has any questions, please let me know.
Okay, starting over here, any questions?
I didn't have any questions. I just, your slide deck and the agenda had a different count under housing. Which one is the right one, out of curiosity?
Under the
In your,
house,
in your staff, yes, in your planning commission report, you had the grid.
yes.
On your slide, the housing row just was different. The numbers were different than what's in our agenda. So,
Oh, is it on the slide? The slide,
yeah, the one you just presented.
slide 3? This one?
You need to share the screen, Evan.
Oh, sorry. Are you talking about this one right here?
You need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, so actually that was a typo of my end. When I was writing this report, I was going through the actual attachment, the Excel file, and I made all the updates on the Excel file. But then when I went to write it on the actual staff report, then I didn't edit the housing. So this is the correct one because we adopted in 2021 the brand new housing element. And so it's still a work in progress to getting that implementation measure going.
Any other questions over here? How about on this side? Okay. So Chair then will adopt.
Do we want to ask Whitney if you have any questions?
Sorry, yeah.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Anything from the public?
There are no hands raised.
Anybody here? Very easy to find out. It's just one of them. Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll try. And again, we're doing one at a time here.
No,
Can you
So-
put the slide up on
Yeah,
what
there's
they're
the two
asking?
things you want to report and file and then. send it to
Yes.
the counselors.
Can you add the slide, put the slide up on screen?
yes.
I move that we receive, well, first of all, I think we ought to find that this does not fall under CEQA. And that would be my first motion, I guess.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second.
I'm sorry, I missed who's second.
Oh,
Item
it was,
number one.
I won it this time. Yeah, I got the second.
Okay,
So we have,
we have
a
a
motion
motion
and a
in a second, yes.
okay, so I will
By
go
the
to,
Johnsons.
yes.
So now we need to vote.
Roll call. Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes. Motion passes 700. Motion for number 2, please.
Move.
So moved. Yeah, I just lost the slide or I would have read it.
So this would be a motion to recommend the city council receive and authorize the annual progress report and housing element reporting be sent to the state HCD and OPR.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll second.
We have a motion in a second. Anybody from the public? Here.
There's no hand raised.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Eklund,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
Yes. Motion passes 700. Item 9B, park naming. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mel Pavlinas, Planning Manager. Similarly as before, presenting this item and utilizing the staff report that's already before you. This is a task that's coming back to your commission for naming parks. But there's urgency to this because we have approximately 8 parks that are currently under review for plans. These parks are ongoing within subdivisions that's been approved the past several years. And previously, we've exhausted all the names that we have so far, the 19 parks that we have, but now we have 8 more coming in line. So I'm going to show you quick. under Exhibit 1, are the location of, there it is, of the parks that are, that's coming in line under review at the moment. They're in various stages and also various locations within the city. And these parks varies in size and types, neighborhood parks. The biggest one, of course, is the one in 12 Bridges next to the Village 27, A and B. And the others are sprinkled around elsewhere in the city. Procedurally, we know, because we have to put plaques, names on these parks. So we're just requesting that the commission take this task again. The previous committee that was tasked to do the naming have disbanded a few years back. So now that we have more parks coming in, we're trying not to get behind the ball here in terms of naming the parks. So then we can then get going with construction and order the signs and create the names. But that means that we need your input on names. We have all this that we've presented as part of the item here, which is this Western Placer County and Lincoln according to history. Pioneer names, there's legacy names here, historical names from the earlier days of Lincoln that can be chosen from. Definitely we're open to your input as well. I've also, as part of, so that we don't duplicate names, I've also included there's a map that has the parks that are currently existing in the city. But out of this item, we would like to get your input on, at the most, 16 names, but minimum 8 names, so we can at least cover the ones that are the 8 parks that we have coming forward. But and then that way, the 16 names that we're requesting could cover the other parks that will be coming thereafter. I know it's a lot to ask of names, but we'll have to kind of go through this list or just talk amongst your commission as far as what names to choose from. And maybe at some point down the road, we can come back to your commission and establish a procedure and or committee potentially to come forward before you and identify and do the task and present to you as far as future names. But what's urgently today is to get a list of names for the upcoming parks that we have ongoing. So that's the item before you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the city attorney if she could please indicate if it's okay. I have spoken with Commissioner Johnson on this issue, and he had some thoughts and ideas which seemed to make a lot of sense as to how we could go about this. Both, he knows some of the history and his involvement with the Rotary Club, which has been involved in helping with sign, what goes on the signs, etc. And I'll let him speak in a moment. Another commissioner brought some thoughts to my attention, independently, right along the same lines. Would it be possible for me to call on the two of them to share briefly their thoughts, and then we maybe appoint a couple members of our planning commission to head up this issue and develop a list of names under the criteria that they are suggesting?
Certainly. So as I understand it, you're seeking some input and perhaps the creation of a subcommittee?
Yes.
That's fine.
Jerry, please briefly share what we talked about yesterday.
Sure. In the past, the Rotary Club has stepped forward and offered to design and construct and install signs in the parks that are informative about the person for whom the park is named. So we try to identify what accomplishments they had, what they contributed to the community of Lincoln, why the council chose to name the parks for these individuals. And I've had the honor of writing those signs. There are about 10 of them that we've installed. I'm working on 2 more, the Atkinson and Foskett Ranch, that those signs will go up in the next couple of months. I have a couple just to show you what they look like. Did you bring those up? Maybe. There you go. So this, there you go. This is a park named after Dr. Nathan Dubin. And this is what they look like. And the point is, there has to be quite a bit of biographical information available to do these kinds of signs. And I think signs are important because they do develop a sense of community. People understand what's going on, that there's a real history to this, to our community. And so I don't think we should limit it to 19th century individuals, because the further back we go, the more difficult it is in most cases to find background material. You know, you could point to some exceptions to like Theodore Judah, which would probably be near the top of my list on a park that hasn't been named for someone. But on the other hand, a small farmer, even if it was an early pioneer, there's probably not going to be a lot of information available for them. And so I think it should be a little bit broader than the 19th century, and not precluding 19th, of course, but we've had some good folks in the 20th century that have had major contributions to the city. Anyway, I would like to volunteer to be on that committee. Be happy to work with the Lincoln Archives Museum that has provided much of the material that I've drawn on for these signs, and of course other members of the subcommittee.
And if we form this committee, they would bring their report back to us with their recommendations, and then we would adopt it. Let me ask you to add your thoughts as well that you shared with me.
Definitely, Commissioner Johnson and I were thinking alike. We were given, as an example today, a long list of names. And even though I've lived here in Lincoln for 20 plus years, I certainly don't recognize people from the 1850s. And I didn't see this as a project that the 7 of us would work on. It's like herding cats. And so I had recommended, in fact, Mel, I had approached you, I believe, yesterday to see about the feasibility of forming a subcommittee, perhaps of 2 planning commissioner members and a couple of people who have a historical perspective. Someone mentioned Shirley Russell. She would be one. Another person who might, if unable to serve on this, but certainly might have recommendations, would be our city treasurer, Richard Pearl, who is very involved in the history of Lincoln. And so I had mentioned to Chair Gilbert my thoughts about the project tonight would be to form an ad hoc task force with perhaps a couple of members. Commissioner Jerry Johnson has volunteered, and perhaps another person on this committee, and then we could attract a couple of others from the outside. So that was my thought.
And to that end, because of the staff's need for names, I would fully support that, with the proviso that you know, as you develop a name, you bring it, say the first few, bring it back to the commission, and let's vote on those and give the staff some support if that makes sense to everybody. So let me hear from my colleagues, if I might, as to what we've kind of worked up.
I'll just add, I appreciate you guys bringing some ideas forward for an ad hoc committee, because I looked at those names and I'm like, I don't know. What I did notice is there were very few women's name on that list, and that, you know, I thought if we have to choose from all of these, I didn't really like that, to be honest. So I am very grateful for these ideas that have come forward to really give it some more thought. The one thing that came to mind is maybe the first park you need right away is Pioneer Park. I don't know, and you can grab some names and start there with one, Pioneer Park, and identify some of these people that you have and move on from there. So I support the ad hoc committee.
You know, this list is an old people from quite a few years back when unfortunately women were in the kitchen. And the faster we come up to today, we're going to have women that made major contributions to our society. So I think the idea that you said about modernizing the period of time that we draw from might support that whole idea.
Yeah, I would just echo what everyone said. I think the list should be broader. I think there should be an ad hoc committee. My question for you is, what is the date you actually need a name by? Like, can you get a name in
Tomorrow?
Can you get a name in mid-May and be fine?
Well, I'll have to work with engineering staff on this. They're reviewing the plans at the moment.
Excuse me.
Oh,
Lindy actually from engineering has her hands raised on Zoom.
We'll go ahead and ask Lindy.
Lindy, you should be able to speak, but please unmute your mic. There you go.
Good evening, Commissioners. So regarding the question about the timing, the most critical park that needs a name is the Capital Improvement Project Park, which is the one in 12 Bridges. That large park is going to be put out to bid this spring. And if we don't have a name for the bid documents, then the sign becomes a change order. So if there was a name on the list that everyone agreed to that we could use for that park, that's the most critical one timing wise, because it will cost more for the capital project if we don't have a name by the time it goes out to bid.
So would the commission agree that with this ad hoc committee, bring a name back to us as soon as possible, like maybe the next meeting?
Yeah.
But could we do that? And then you could take a little more time to develop the longer list. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that still wasn't a date you need the first name. Can you wait until the regularly scheduled May meeting for a name?
I think that's ideal. Let's just plan on having names come back for the
Right.
next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we can form an ad hoc committee, which I'm happy to be part of if needed, and I'm interested in actually learning that history as well. But I think, I think as they vet, because the other thing you want to do is vet the names too. Because the last thing you want to do is put a park name up and then discover something later. So
Comments down here. The furthest, Jerry.
Is it my turn or your? go ahead.
Mine?
Well, I thought we let him go. You can go after.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement of forming some kind of committee. Yeah, I was kind of curious how we found ourselves in this position where all of a sudden we need a name like right away. To be honest, when I saw this on the agenda, I was kind of scratching my head, like I couldn't believe, it seemed like we were going to be asked to pick 16 names on the fly here, which I didn't appreciate, but I'm glad that we can at least take a month to think of a good name, because this is a huge deal. I mean, this is going to be permanent in the city, hopefully, and something that creates the identity for not only the city, but that community that's going in, and something that people are going to rally around. So I think it's a huge, significant deal to come up with a good name that represents where these parks are. So I'm definitely in favor of ad hoc committee, because I don't think it should be something taken lightly to just kind of throw at the wall and see what sticks, but have some good thought that goes into it. So I'm glad this, hopefully we have a good name, at least one or two or few, whatever. I'm sure the committee will, and I'm also interested in the history too. It sounds like it's limited to a few, but if there's, room for another person, I'd be happy, but I don't need to, because I don't want to muddy the waters too much. But yeah, I'm glad to see that that's gonna going to be considered?
Well, if you wanted to produce a name tonight, I'd recommend Theodore Judah, who surveyed the initial town site of Lincoln and designed the this western portion of the Transcontinental Railroad. But if we're-
Chairman Gilbert, Commissioner Eklund has her hand raised online.
Sure, just as soon as Jerry's finished. Oh, okay. So let's go to her then.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm interested in being on the ad hoc committee as well. I love history. I might not be the oldest person in the room, but I would recommend, as well as Rotary, maybe including the Women's Club. I know that there's historians on their board, and as well as the Native Women's Club. Did I get that right? I think. And then I would also hit up members of the community, maybe on Facebook, just to get like some feedback in the 12 Bridges community, the Friends of 12 Bridges, and neighbors group. There's a couple that I'm a part of as well. And I just want to echo that I thought the same thing. I'm not saying that it needs to be a woman's name, but I was a little bummed that there weren't more, and it makes sense historically, but there's got to be a few. And I would also incorporate the Archives Museum volunteers and workers, as their plethora of information, and maybe there's something applicable to specifically the geographic location of that park that we're trying to name, that we can tie it in as well, instead of just random, Lincoln historical figure. Maybe there's something more applicable specifically to that location in 12 Bridges. That's it.
Okay. If we decide to move forward with an ad hoc committee, we're not going to limit the input to those members of the ad hoc committee, and there are resources, some of which have been spoken about tonight, that you certainly can interview and talk to as a group individually and develop a list. And then you can, as the committee, the ad hoc committee, refine the list. If you find you can get historical data about the people, that's important, because as Jerry said, the Rotary Club supports this by developing a sign. Just to call something the Smith Park doesn't mean anything, because there's a few Smiths in the world. But to be able to say, here's a Smith that did such and such for the community. And of course, we all are very sensitive to the fact that women play an equal role in our society. So we should seek out women that have made contributions to our community, and having people like Shirley Russell involved. She knows of a lot of women historically. The other thing is, there are families in Lincoln that go back 5, 6 generations who maybe haven't been involved in the community, but have tremendous history. And the museum, Lincoln Museum, may be another source of giving you some names. So I'd like to suggest to my colleagues that we develop this ad hoc committee. And let's make it an odd number of people, because it's easier to vote that way. Let's not
Well,
have
I
an
would-
even number.
Right. I would suggest that if you are going to make a motion for this ad hoc committee, that it be no more than 3,
Great.
so that we don't end up with any Brown Act issues.
Yes, yes. So I will, you came to me first and you came to me second. One of you want to make a motion?
I respectfully would not be able to serve.
Okay,
I'll make a motion
please.
to form this ad hoc committee with members Jerry Johnson, with Commissioner Whitney Eklund, and with Commissioner John Reedy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion?
So I was going to suggest,
Oh, please.
so I would suggest that the ad hoc committee is up to 7. those 3 people plus 4 communities at large, member from the community at large that we recruit to come in?
Well, how about if we let you 3 make all the rules that you govern by and work
Okay.
by, because you may not find 4.
Okay,
And then again, you may find 2, and then again, you may find 1 who says, and there's these folks, these families who can also bring something to the table. So let's just leave it open and let you
I'm good with
guide
that.
yourselves.
Yeah, then the only other thing I would amend is to have Jerry be the chair, so someone's driving the crane. Coordinating the meetings, inviting the people.
You could do that when you meet. Okay, so, yeah, we have the 3 people. So all those, in this one we can vote on, right? Oh,
Whitney.
okay, okay. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Eric Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Uckman,
Yes.
Commissioner Jerry Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reedy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hutchison,
Yes.
Chairman Gilbert.
I'm not sure how I want to, but yes. And I'll just charge you all with the idea of bringing at least 1 back as quick as possible so we can support our staff. Okay, thank you for your help on that, everybody. Next is commissioner comments. Let's start down this end. Anything?
Just real quick, I'm curious, from the city, has there been any conversations regarding Highway 65? I know it's a jurisdiction of Caltrans, but I know it's an increasing concern in the community. I'm just curious if there's anything in the works for widening, I guess, southbound.
That is on the Sparta work plan. That's one of the top projects is the Highway 65 widening. So that along with the interchange are the maybe top 3 projects on their work plan.
Is there an idea of like a timeline, or is it just kind of parked there?
Yeah, I can't speak to the timeline on that. I mean, I know they're trying to raise fees quite dramatically to fund that project, so. but
Okay.
it
And to
is
raise fees and also considering a tax measure.
sales
Okay.
tax.
2024, oh, okay. Maybe a little sneak preview. Okay, thank you. And then just bringing to attention, I know there's some growing concern about road striping issues. I know it seems like there's several places in the city that a lot of the striping is kind of worn out. So I just wanted to bring that to attention. And if anybody has, wants to report those, what's the best way to report issues like that? Email Public Works? Okay. And then, let's see. Oh, one more question. So the multi-use paths, in 12 Bridges, I noticed that I think there's some growing safety issues along the path out there, especially with a lot of the most recent rain. There's a lot of areas just along the trail that's been really rutted out, and you have significant drops, like, over a foot or 2. If someone, wanders off the path, that could be a huge issue and liability for the city. I know there's some sections where some of the section of the cement has raised up, and there's been some cones placed there for about the last 6 to 8 months, but nothing's happened with those. So I assume that's not the permanent solution to just set cones out there, but just wanted to bring that up as well. Maybe something that should probably be addressed sooner than later. Just
It was a topic of discussion when we met with Public Works just in their monthly meeting. So
Okay.
I can reiterate that to them as well.
okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
I wanted to express my thanks to the commission for being so civil. We can disagree on certain things and no one seems to take it personally. And so I'm enjoying my participation. Thank you all.
Thank you. Down the end.
Yeah, this is my first meeting where I've been with our new commissioners. And so I had missed the one when you first joined, and I just wanted to welcome our new 3 commissioners. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm going to mention something probably dear to many people's hearts, and that's traffic studies. There have been many discussions lately about the rapid growth here within our city and the issues with traffic, especially along Joyner Parkway is one. And also along 12 Bridges coming down from Sierra College. And now there's a road in the Sun City development called Ingram that has become a thoroughfare for people out to the freeway. And so is there any planning short-term perhaps for some additional traffic studies, or is it just something that,
Lindy on RSP, are you still on by any chance? We'd have to look into that and get back to you,
Oh,
but we'll
that's
definitely
fine.
note it. Yeah.
I had a quick comment.
Please.
I wanted to thank staff for putting together this general plan progress report. I know that that takes a lot of work because there's so many moving parts, and I knew there was a lot of moving parts, but looking at that report and having it all listed and agendized is really helpful. I think not just for us, but for the community to see what you guys are doing, what council's doing, and yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all the time that you put into that.
Thank you. And I don't have anything other than to say we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
I'm sorry, there's some information, staff informational
I'll
items.
just make a quick re-extend an invite for anyone to contact staff if they want to set up a one-on-one meeting with us. We're more than happy to do that anytime you guys would like. So just let us know.
Oh, thank you for that. And
Prior to-
I met with the city manager a few weeks ago and expressed my interest in encouraging him and the staff to develop whatever kind of training or informational material you think might be valuable to myself and our colleagues. And he said that he would look into that and make sure that all of us were getting all the, information we needed to be as effective as possible. So being that we have a great city manager, I'm sure he'll follow up and there'll be something offered, and strictly on a volunteer basis, not anything of a formal meeting that we all have to attend. So
Oh, one more thing I want to add for tonight is
please.
if I think it's Michelle Hutchinson's last DRB item meeting this Thursday, I believe. I think your term is running up.
I didn't even know if there was an official term as such, but yes.
Yeah, same here. Sadly, yeah. Yeah, and I think I saw an email pass through Commissioner Gilbert regarding your intent to nominate somebody else or somebody. I forget.
Well, I had an inquiry from our colleague who's on the
Oh.
East Coast.
Oh,
I guess she knew that the term was coming up and volunteered her service, but I don't know the procedure. I sent an email to our attorney to find out what the procedure is.
I referred it to our city clerk who handles all appointments.
Okay, so then if they could bring that before, if it's something that we appoint, bring it before us, because Whitney has indicated her desire to go on and she's ready to retire. Yes.
With it, and when I became involved with it, it was at that time volunteer. This year,
We can't hear what she's saying. She needs the mic.
Whitney, I'm happy to share my thoughts with you.
I suggested to Whitney that she attend the next one, irrespective of what happens, and see the workings of the group, and so she understands how they function.
The next DRB meeting will be next Wednesday, the 26th.
I have it in my calendar.
You'll be back in town?
I will be coming home tomorrow.
I had one thought. I had asked earlier for us to receive copies of the trail thing, and it is on, it was materials provided for tonight's session on the parks, ironically, the park naming. So we've got it. No need to address that issue unless there's a finer grain one, but I think that's probably the one that's the only one you have.
I'll do some more digging. What I provided is just a map, so it's probably more
If
comprehensive.
there's more than that,
Yeah,
okay, great.
I'll dig around and send it to all of you.
By the way, I had a neighbor ask me, what's the population of Lincoln? And I said, well, I saw it on a sign that said 48. He says, that sign's been there for years. So if somebody has an idea of what our most recent population is, it would probably be good for all of us to know that.
Okay.
Good. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.